Well, hello and welcome to Being Catholic Media. I'm glad you have joined us. Well, earlier on, I spoke to an incredible man of God. You may know him. His name is Marino Restrepo, and he is from Colombia. And at the age of 47, he was kidnapped by a Colombian cartel, and he was taken away into the jungle where he was beaten for over 7 months. But during this period, he received an illumination of conscience and was visited by the Lord and his Blessed Mother. He has an incredible story to share with us. So take a listen to what Marino has to share with us. Well, hello, Marino, and thank you for joining us all the way from Colombia. And thank you for joining us today on Being Catholic Media to share your wonderful story and your testimony. So perhaps we can start. Well, what life was like for you growing up in Colombia as a child? I mean, was faith in your family?
Yes, I grew up in a very small town up in the Andes Mountains, coffee growers area. They call it the coffee area of Colombia, which are a few mountains planted in coffee for centuries already. And I grew up in a Catholic family, numerous family, all of us, uncles and aunts. They had 10, 15 children each. So we were a pretty large family.
And was the Catholic faith very much in your home? Were you saying the rosary and all that kind of thing, going to mass on a regular basis?
Yes, in those times, 1950s, when I was born, everybody was a Catholic, and my town was a Catholic town. We had Spaniards as educators. Our schools were all led by Spaniards, nuns and priests. And so we had Catholic traditions at home with the rosary, praying over the food, at the table. It was very Catholic. It's very, very Catholic. Today we have lost a lot of that, but still we are pretty much a Catholic country.
So, and when you were a young child or a young boy, was Jesus, Mary, were they a big part of your life, or was it just something that you did because it was part of the tradition of the family?
Well, at that time, everything was a tradition to me. It was a Catholic culture, so to say. Mm-hmm. I was like a trumpet player for the school band, and I used to play in all the processions, Mm-hmm. And so because of being such a Catholic community, we had all these dramatic Holy Weeks, and all the feasts of the church were big. There were processions for every feast, and we will play in the band. So I was part of all that tradition and religion, and very active, but not as anyone aware of what I was doing.
As you're going through childhood into your teenage years, did you plan to go to university, or what was your dreams and ambitions and goals when you were growing up as a young child?
It was a combination of influences, because as I reached 13 years old, 14, that was when I left my hometown and came to the capital, to Bogota, where I am now. I was already listening to the Beatles and listening to all this rock and roll music that was coming from the UK and the US, and the hippies were coming to Colombia, dodging the army, and so we had all these things going on at the same time. It was like a revolution, and I came into the city, the big city, as a province, boy, very naive and unaware of the mainstream of the world, and I ran into that mainstream here in Bogota, and very soon I was taken by it, by all these liberal, way of living of the Americans that were here, the hippies. You know how they came in with the free love, and there was, all this sexual revolution, and also the so many influences from the Eastern pagan religions. Gurus were everywhere, and so I became completely syncretized very soon.
Just moving on a wee bit then, you speak in previous testimonies about living in Germany and America. So tell us how your life took you there to these countries.
Well, picking up from your question that I didn't quite answer about what I was thinking or dreaming to do while I was in my hometown in my early teens, I obviously wanted to go to university and I wanted to follow what everybody was doing in traditionally my family, becoming a doctor or becoming something, somebody. But when I came to the city and that revolution hit me, I forgot all about that. But
Mhm,
I ended up getting married in Bogota when I was right before I was 20, and I moved to Germany to Hamburg.
mhm,
And there I went to the University of Hamburg to study arts and became an actor and a musical composer and lived there for 7 years. My two sons were born there.
mhm,
And then I moved to California
mhm.
and I got engaged in my profession in the entertainment industry,
Okay.
acting, music. I was signed to Sony Music of New York as an exclusive artist and produced records for them and traveled the world doing concerts. And that's how I got involved for years and continue on with this type of hippie mentality and culture, new age type of culture. And California is probably the world's capital of new age. So I was there in my little paradise, completely engaged with this darkness that looked like light.
So basically, you came back, so you had a fantastic life there, which you thought was a fantastic life. And then you came back to Colombia, where this whole incident happened of being kidnapped by a Colombian cartel. So take us through that.
Yes, after years of living in the fast lane and sort of enjoying my sinful life, one can say that. Lots of money, lots of pleasure, lots of opportunities in all kinds of angles. Things that I didn't even dream about it. I made it, I achieved it. But then one time I came to Colombia during Christmas, um, because within the 4 years prior to the Christmas of '97, I had lost 5 people in my family, one after another. First, my wife that died of cancer, then my younger brother, then my father, then another brother, then my mother. So we were 4 sisters and me left that Christmas. And I came to see them because we were all still mourning all those people that parted. And I didn't usually come to Colombia since I left when I was very young. I was pretty much away all the time. But this time I was feeling I needed to come and join my sisters. And Christmas is a big time of a family life here in Colombia as a Catholic country. So I came, and I was far from being a Catholic any longer. It's been 33 years since I didn't walk into a Catholic church when I came that Christmas of '97. And my sisters invited me to go to church and pray the Divine Infant's Christmas Novena, which is a pretty old tradition here. For sure, I practiced that when I was a kid and when I was at school in my hometown, but I had forgotten all about it. But I joined them. I went to church and prayed the novena with them. They had no idea I was no longer a Catholic. For them, it would have been a scandal. But then on Christmas Day, that is the day after I finished praying the novena, I was driving at midnight into a coffee ranch plantation of one of my uncles in my hometown. And I was surprised by the rebels of the Colombian Revolutionary Army called FARC. And they jumped out of the woods with machine guns and kidnapped me for a ransom for money. And so they tied my hands up in the back and put a hood over my head and took me to the jungle prisoner. And I spent 6 months in the jungle. Uh, the first 15 days, they kept me in a cave while they were waiting for another group to come and pick me up. They were supposed to internate me deeper in the jungle where nobody could find me while they collected the ransom. Because to collect the ransom is a pretty difficult thing for them being in the jungle and me bringing the money from California. So they will connect with my attorney, and they had to bring an interpreter because I will be speaking English. And that's how they began to take the money and make
Right.
money transfers. And it's a horrible thing, you know. And so, but on the 15th day is when I had this amazing mystical experience. I was devastated already by the whole ordeal. I was weak. They were feeding me only once a day with wild roots and wild fruits and water, whatever water they could find. And so I was growing really weary, concerned. I knew I was soon going to die of all kinds of diseases because I was being bitten by
Oh,
bugs of all kinds. And I had I was swelling everywhere. I had shivers. I had, you know, I mean, I wouldn't end telling you the symptoms I had. It was like dying. And so on the day 15, those guys, on top of everything, they came and sentenced me to death and said that as soon as I paid the ransom, they were going to kill me, that I wasn't going to make it out alive.
they must
Yes,
have obviously thought from your background, Marino, that you had loads of money. You know,
yes, they
obviously,
did.
so that was the reason they kidnapped you, because you're obviously this well-known rich person from California. So they thought you
Yes,
had a lot of money.
yes, they did. They studied me. They really smart. They knew how to get what they wanted, and they knew about, you know, about what I had. So they studied me well. So yes, that's the reason they picked me up. So then after they sentenced me to death and told me I had no hope of making it out alive, after I pay it, that was it for me. Then you probably imagine how I felt. I hit bottom for real. And I was already in the bottom, but this is like beyond bottom.
Yeah.
And I was done for. My life was over. And it was just a matter. So at that time, I was thinking, I probably better die now that I feel so weak and I'm so sick, and then get it over with. That
Yeah.
was my thought, you know. And then they kept me tied up and with a hood over my head after they interview me and throw me back in the cave. And that's when this incredible experience took place. Because
Okay.
I'm there, I'm awake and I'm conscious. I'm just very weak. And all of a sudden, I began to go through my life from my childhood on. I was at 3 years old on a tricycle with a stick in my hand, going through the gardens of the house where I was born in my hometown. And I was not like looking at a movie. I was there at 3 years old. But I had the conscience of 47 years old because that's how old I was that night, which made it very strange, very difficult, very mysterious. I was in awe because it was like an ecstasy. I couldn't get off that ecstasy. And I was like breathless and going through that. It's just hard to explain, but
Yeah.
it's just like that. You know, you can't get off. You are way high, but you are in touch with the ground. You know, because I felt I was in the cave, but I was removed like in a rapture. You know, and reliving my life, which is very mysterious. And I continue on going through that.
Okay.
And by the time I was going through like 11 or 12 years old, uh, I this is like outside time, you know. If when I relate to that, when I narrate it, I bring it into time, but there was no time involved because those 11 years that I went through now, as far as I have told you, they were like 11 years, you know, but there's no way you can measure it in the dimension I was experiencing it. So um, at that time, when I reached like 11 or 12 years old, I began to go through the most excruciating pain
Oh.
because my conscience began to wake up. So my conscience was asleep. I didn't know my conscience was sleeping, because when you live in mortal sin, away from God, you lose the fear of God. Your conscience goes to sleep, and you don't even notice it, because you lose all fear. And so now it's waking up. You will never be able to imagine how painful that is. It was waking up, and I began to feel the consequences of my sins.
Just to say to our audience, you were 47 at this time. You were 47 when
Yes.
you were taken captive. So was the Lord, were they taking you through the whole of your 47 years through this illumination of conscience?
Yes, I went through the whole 47 years. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And this pain began at around 11 or 12 years old, where I opened up and began to see the true dimension of sin. And God appeared again in my conscience, like the fear of God. And everything that I was taught at school, in my family, in church, became alive again, like the catechism and all of that I completely have forgotten. But it wasn't forgotten, it was in me, but it was sleeping, it was dormant. So
Yes.
then when it woke up, then my conscience began to grasp my life that had been so far away from those truths. And that became a big trouble, because the pain was unbearable, and
Yeah.
it was too big. It was
So
amazing. I thought I was going to like disintegrate, because
okay.
it was too much.
So the Lord showed you the gravity of your sin. And tell us about the sin in your life. What exactly was life like for you when you were living in America, when you were involved with the entertainment industry? Give us a picture of what life was like for you. What type of sin were you engaged in?
Well, on one end, I lived a very professional life, so to say, high discipline, because I needed to be a dancer on the stage during my rock and roll concerts and tours. So our life was very demanding. So there were times where we were very straight, so to say, as far as the life we lived. We will work very hard, we will rest well, we will eat well, we will not drink or use any drugs or nothing. But then in the times between my touring and my recording and my acting, I will be a very destructive person. I will have 2 or 3 months with lots of money, lots of time, and lots of people around me, people that were all the same, with money and with all kinds of creativity, destructive creativity. So we lived a very decadent life during those times that we had in between contracts. And the life we lead was a life of alcohol, drugs, sex, and a very decadent life, which is the typical Hollywood life. Um, and also, I was engaged in astrologies and numerologies and divination and psychics, and all of that was part of my life.
So you
So
were
it
part of
was
New Age.
really,
Yeah. New Age
yes,
stuff. Counterfeit
yes,
Christianity. Counterfeit
yeah.
Christianity.
And I
So
was able to buy what I wanted and travel wherever I wanted. And all of that was part of the destructive type of life, because and so it was a combination of being very straight for a year and then very destructive for 2 or 3 months. And that's the life I lived for over 20 years.
so you talked about when the Lord was revealing all this to you and the horrendous pain you were going through. Perhaps you can elaborate a little bit more on that for us.
I began to feel the reality of my sinful life. And as I grew older in my illumination of conscience, pain was harder, because the dimension of sin was more grave, and so it was getting more complicated as time went by. By the time I was reaching the 47, then something happened that was even more mysterious, because then this illumination of conscience it leads me into another dimension. I appeared face down against the grass, excuse me, in what appeared to be a pretty high mountain, and in the midst of the most amazing silence, a silence I never experienced before in my life. And like I said, I was in awe all the time. This was an ecstasy. I was breathless. I was like, I couldn't get off that. And this is going on and on and on. And I thought I parted already. I thought I left. I thought, because, I didn't feel dead, but I felt like I left. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because usually you will feel, oh, I'm dead. No, there was no sense of death. It was a sense of parting, like I'm gone, but I'm gone into another life. Like this is new, this is something new, but very complicated, more complicated than anything I ever lived before.
Yes.
So it's like going, oh my, this is getting really difficult. And I was wondering, what am I going to find now? It's like, and I look up to the sky and I see this extraordinary creation, the stars and all of that, so incredibly beautiful. I never seen it like that. And the silence, I can only call it a perfect silence, because it was perfect. But then I look up to the distance and I can see another mountain. And the top of that mountain was covered with fog. And very slowly, that fog began to fade, and this is all like I am so curious about all of that, but at the same time I'm wondering what is next. And the thing is that the most extraordinary city of light appeared on that mountain, extraordinary, and that made my ecstasy even bigger, like huge, because I understood what it was, and I knew that I had to have been there and didn't make it. So I looked around to see how I can get there, and I noticed that the two mountains were not connected. Then I was in trouble. I thought, oh, it's like the feeling was I didn't make it. So now what, So at that moment, I began to hear a voice that spoke to me from everywhere. It was a voice that was coming from even inside me, from everywhere. And that shoot me, it was like a shifting. I went into yet another dimension. And though I have been away from God for so long, the moment I heard the voice, I knew it was God's voice. So that made it even more difficult because I knew the state of my soul. I just had the illumination of conscience and I knew who I was. So just to listen to his voice made me wanted to hide, to disappear, I felt I want to disintegrate, and I can't stand so much love. I can't stand this perfection. I can't stand this incredible God that is talking to me, and I am such a miserable creature. But he didn't make me feel like that. He was holding me there in the most incredible mercy. And his voice was so incredibly consoling and beautiful because though my experience was so difficult, he was there to hold me. And but I couldn't bear the pain because it's just like love holding this irresponsible human being. And I felt like I can't let him hold me, there's no way I can't, it's burning me. And so much love is burning me. It's like destroying me because I didn't have a drop of love in me. And so love was killing me. But he held me there and he spoke to me at length. I tell people if I were to live 100 more years, I wouldn't even touch the surface of what has been left infused in me, from all of that flows out as I speak. because it's not in my memory. You know, it's in weight infused. And I have given hundreds of talks through the 22 years of missions, and they are all different. And I never studied them. I never
Yes.
prepared them. They just flow and
You know,
flow.
Marina, the one thing I would say, we were so thrilled to be able to get you to come and speak to us. And I've watched your testimonies over the years. And the one thing I will say is truth comes out of you, and it's so authentic. And you would know that it comes from God. Because like you say, when you say it so many times, you get tired of it. It's our human side. But the one thing that I have said about you time and time again, it's so authentic. You hit the nail on the head so often that it can't but be the truth. So I agree with you. It's the Lord using you, the Lord speaking through you. So you're speaking about, you saw two hills. You saw one which had light, and then you saw another one. So what do you think the other one represents?
The one with the city of light?
Yeah.
Well, it's represented paradise, I believe.
Yes.
I believe it was the Jerusalem of heaven.
Yes.
The city of light, because it was so magnificent. Regardless of how much effort I can make, there's no way I can describe it.
Yes.
Words will never make it.
Yes.
There's no way. It's beyond our understanding and imagination.
Yes.
Not even the greatest poet could write about it. You know,
Yes.
it's just and to think that this is what has been promised to us is our destination. St. Paul says that we have the passport to get there, and just when I saw that, I knew. Now I know how much effort we have to make it. You know, it's just not that simple to get there. You know, we need to make it there, but to make it there, we really have to become very holy, because it's all about light, and only light can enter there.
Yes.
You see, the way to get there is through the light.
Yes.
And the light, it becomes spaceless, timeless. Light is just eternal. So when you become light, as soon as you leave the body, you will go towards the light, and you will end up in the city. It's just magnificent to picture your life becoming that. You see, that's why I tell people, you see, my greatest invitation to people always say, think about light, think about becoming light, and you will become light in a universe of light, and everything is light where you go, and you will become that. It's just so incredible, because here, when we are going through this exile, we don't notice it quite, but it is dark. It's very dark. You know, we have artificial light, and we have material light that comes from the sun and the moon and the stars, and then artificial electrical light and all of this. But this is nothing. It's very dark because we lack in the true light inside, and that's why we sometimes feel dark, depressed and insecure and afraid, because we lack in the light. See, we are in the dark, and so it's so incredible to begin to fill yourself with that light.
When we're speaking about light, there is also darkness. So did you experience the darkness while you were there too? Did you experience hell? Were you shown hell?
Yes. One of the reasons why I am talking to you right now, and why I became a missionary of our Catholic Church, is because I saw that. Because I don't want anyone to go there. And this is my seal of my mission. You know, I want to tell everybody that. After I experienced what I just told you about the hills and the city of light, and the Lord spoke to me at length He spoke to me about the church. He spoke to me about the sacraments. He spoke to me about the Hebrews, the Jews, and he spoke to me about all sacred history, so to say. And it was just incredible how he took me through all of that. And then I ended up in a lake. And in front of the lake, there was a magnificent, gigantic rock. And it was like made of old gold. And I looked at it, and on top of the rock, there was a man, the head of a man, looking sideways. Wasn't looking at me, and I didn't know who he was at first. And I was there in that lake with the water up to my waist, and all of a sudden I noticed a mist floating on top of the lake. When I looked at it closely, I noticed it wasn't a mist. It was hundreds of spirits of evil, hundreds. They were like bundles floating in this ethereal type of mist. And I was aware of each one of them, though they were in bundles like lime, and it was very disgusting, the view of it, because I knew it was bad. I knew it was evil. I knew it was my destruction, of my life. It was all the dark side of my life was there. And I was aware of it, of every bit of it. It's like it's a reality that you conceive instantaneously. It's not like I had to look at each one of these aspects. They were all clear to me instantaneously. Yeah, I understood everything. I was aware of everything. And the hardest part of all, I was responsible of everything. So there was no excuse. There was no blaming. It was me. I was the one that made it possible, because none of those evil forces would have been able to do a thing with me if I wouldn't have allowed them. That's what it is. They have no power. They have no power. Only the power we give them.
Yeah, we give them permission. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the hardest part of that encounter, to think that I gave them the power of my life, to do what they did with me. So I looked at it, and then I see that mist continues on towards an abyss on my left side. And I could look down towards the abyss and see how deep down I had already gone through my sinful life. So if I would have died that night, I knew where I would have ended up. And you can imagine how deep down I was already. So I would have ended up in hell, and very deep down, because there are many levels. To describe what I saw in the abyss is just the very similar of what I saw on the lake. It was a continuation of these creatures that were like bundles, and they were all horrible and destructive and mocking your life and mocking goodness, and everything was just like a sabotage of goodness, And this is how it goes on. The deeper you see down, the more complicated it gets, because it just becomes more evil. And one will think that you can't get any worse than what you're looking at. Oh, yes, it does get worse. It does get much worse. And I just only saw how deep I went, but it was bottomless. So it's too complicated. It's too horrifying.
Yes.
Then I looked at on the right side of me of the lake, I could see there was another dimension. And that dimension I found out later, and this is after I came off the ecstasies. A long time after, I realized it was purgatory. But while I was going through that, I didn't know what it was, but it was a dimension where I could see people that were not demons, they were not evil, but they were in a very complicated state. And the ones that were at my level of the lake, of the water, they were in the worst state. They were practically touching earth, but they were no longer living on earth,
Okay.
but they were totally related to earthly life. So souls that didn't complete their earthly life because they lived a life that was only a life of the flesh, a life of the material world. And just by the mercy of God and a very mysterious and intrinsic soul's economy made it possible for them to be saved because they were all saved already. But they had to go through this incredible cleansing and purification, purgation, in order to advance towards the light.
Yes.
So they will slowly grow, you know, and get higher.
Yeah.
And but though they were so strange, all the figures they were changing because they were all ethereal also, and you could see forms of people. You know, I see they were persons, but they were too complicated to describe because they will move along different features according to what they were purgating at the moment. So they will change. And I will see people like wrapped up in gas, you know, or people that look like wooden like or metal like or look in pieces, and the pieces would come together and then disintegrate again, things like that. Then I could see a face, and the face is looking at me, and then it disintegrates, and I could see only the eyes, and but there was all filled with love, all of them. So to me, it was a relief to look at them because they gave me peace.
Yes.
Though they were going through such a difficult state, they gave me peace and lots of love, a love that was for me bearable because the love of God was too big. It was just like disintegrating me. But this love was more human, you know, it was more closer to me, and it was healing me, consoling me. It was incredible. So I look up towards the rock, and I see that man that was there, and I realized that it was my guardian angel.
Okay.
And he was the one that had been showing me everything I just described to you, my angel. He was not speaking to me with a voice like God spoke to me. He was speaking to me through signs, like I was understanding everything he was showing. Then when I looked at him, he made it known to me that he was the one teaching me all of this, all the spiritual world with evil and the purgatorial. Though at that moment I didn't realize it was purgatory because the angel didn't call it that. You know, he told me this is like mercy, you know, like the mercy of God. You know, that's the way he presented it. The souls that were on my right side of the lake, he was telling me, because I looked at the angel after I looked at the purgatory side, and that's when he told me they are mercy, you know. And then I realized he's my angel, you know, and I became very humble before him, but he held me also like God held me with so much love. He didn't let me sink in my misery, you know. He just kept me up because I wanted to bend, you know, like, but he kept me up looking at him, like saying, I'm like you, I'm just a creature, you know,
Yes.
but I am your guardian. And so at that moment, he took me to my hometown, and I was like age 12 in my hometown, playing the trumpet in a procession of Our Lady. And there was a statue that was being carried by 4 schoolmates of mine, and I was playing right behind the statue, playing the trumpet. And the procession continued on, and a little bit later, Our Lady was no longer a statue. She was walking with 2 children, one in each hand, and I noticed the child on her right hand was me. at age 7. And then the angels show me how my mother had um, consecrated me in my mother's womb, consecrated to Our Lady,
Wow.
and how Our Lady was always with me, regardless of my sinful life. She never left me, and I could see through those processions, different processions I participated, how I received lots of blessings. And though I never played the trumpet to serve the church, that wasn't my intention, you know. But God took it as a service
Yes.
and gave me credit, you know. It's like a very powerful credit. When you do a good deed, you received a lot of blessings. When you give alms, when you love somebody, when you console a person, when you feel love for people and pray for them, even though you don't know them, all of that is precious. It's like the treasures we accumulate in heaven. Those are. And I could see that that trumpet gave me lots of credit, you know, with God. And I didn't do it for that. I had no idea I was doing that, much less did I know I was gaining anything. I thought I was just playing the trumpet and escaping classes and,
Yeah.
impressing the little girls in town and all of that. That was my reason.
So when you're experiencing all of this, some people may be watching who may say, or maybe it was just an hallucination. And you've mentioned in your previous testimonies that this life was far more real, felt more real than the life that we're living today. So I guess you were brought to maybe a heightened awareness of what it's like in the real world, in the life after death, so to speak.
Yes, you know, it's incredible to think that we haven't been born yet. You know, we are pretty amazed with this creation. We feel, you know, you look at the mountains and the rivers and the flowers and even human beings and animals and the stars, and you see, whoa, whoa, you know, you are in awe because it's amazing creation. But it's nothing compared to what awaits us. You know, when we wake up into the true life, which is the spiritual life, then we are going to be truly in awe. And that is if we end up in the light, because if we end up in the darkness, I already told you, it is a horrifying sight. And that's why I spend my life telling people, make sure you walk on the light. Walk on the light, like the
Yes,
song
because
says.
I remember when I was reading your testimony in the Warning, the book, The Warning, it was 3 o'clock in the morning and I was reading it. And I was reduced to tears because, first of all, I was blown away by your story and your testimony. But I thought to myself, I better get my stuff together. Because, like you say, we have to work towards heaven. You know, it's not, you don't just arrive, you have to work. We're all a work in progress. We're all reaching towards that holiness. And I think by reading your testimony, like I say, it totally blew me away, but at the same time made me realize I'm going to have to work harder. I'm going to have to do good works of mercy while I'm here. I'm going to have to attend confession as much as I can. But you spoke about that you met the Lord. Did you see him?
Yes, this is how it happens. First of all, I already told you I heard his voice. And then after the angel walked me through this experience of my hometown and the trumpet playing and the processions, and he showed me what he called the soul's economy, which was God's mercy. Because of the little deeds I did, he saved me from gigantic dangers, you know, because he used that to buy me out of Satan, from great destructions. He was coming after me, and the Lord stopped it with the credit I had. So that was incredible. That was the angel called it the soul's economy. I have some talks in internet in my YouTube channel called the soul's economy. You may want to check them. It's all about that. So now I am back in the lake, and all of a sudden the the whole area of the rock was filled with the most incredible light. The angel was in the light anyways, but this time was the whole rock. Um, and I recognized the light because that was the same light of the city of light. Same light. It's a very particular light. It's not just like a common light. You could see it almost. It's as almost you could touch it. You know, it's like it has a texture to it. Though it wasn't physical, but that was the sensation. You know, it's like it was it's a particular light. Only God has the light, you know. And I knew Jesus was there, but I knew I couldn't look at him because I was standing in the lake in the midst of the most incredible darkness. I was in the dark, total darkness. That's where I ended up. And I knew I couldn't look up to the light. And because even when I was talking to the angel, I wasn't looking at him straight. I was looking at the bottom of the rock. See? And I couldn't stand the light. So now the light of Jesus, you're talking about an amazing light. So I felt the presence on the right side of the rock. And I realized it was Our Lady again. See? And I felt connected to her like through an umbilical spiritual cord that will come out of my stomach, so to say, towards her. And all that I was going through in my heart was flowing through that umbilical cord towards her. And then from her, it was going into the light, into Jesus. And it was like, it's like a centrifuge, you know, it was like something that was being boiled, you know, so to say. It's hard to explain. It was being prepared through her womb and brought into the light. And I was receiving this rescuing from Jesus, you know, that was provided by Our Lady. See, it's like she was the mediator of my rescuing, you know, and I felt the light of Jesus becoming closer and stronger to me. And then I was lifted up my head to look at the light. And I looked at the light, I was totally blinded. Couldn't figure anything out but being blind, you know, by the light. But slowly, because a force was keeping me up, looking up, as if he was lifting from my chin. And I began to slowly see the silhouette of Jesus, you know, like his face, his head, and his whole body, extremely ethereal, right? But it was Jesus, like almost like the divine mercy presence, sort of like a filled with rays of light and this beautiful face that I never was able to say if he had a beard or a long hair or something. Impossible to say. You know, it was not about that. It was like beyond that. It was him. It was Jesus, you know, and it was in the light. It was made of light. Light was him, you know, and so it is all too complicated to describe it, but it was Jesus. And he was looking at me like saying, "You're mine," you know, regardless if you find yourself where you are mine, you know. And this is when I came off the ecstasies. I came off the ecstasies, and I am back in this cave and back to that misery, you know, back to that horror. But still, I knew deep inside me that something huge had taken place. I only didn't know how to rationalize it. You know, it wasn't in my mind, but I knew something happened. And the next day, the guerrillas took me out of the cave, and I spent 5.5 months more as a prisoner after my mystical experience. So they were taking me up and down the jungles, and those people were always running from the army, hiding, and I was with them, so they would drag me back and forth. So, and it was a tormentous time, but my biggest worry wasn't being killed by the guerrillas, my biggest worry was going to hell.
Mhm.
So I was begging the Lord not to let me die without confessing.
Mhm.
See, because I didn't ever wanted to go back to the lake. See, and the Lord gave me that grace because 6 months later, I ended up being set free on the road at night with no explanation, though I was sentenced to death. And they abandoned me on the road at night. And that's how I ended up back in freedom. And so I made it to my family, and as soon as I could, I went to confession, the Franciscan convent, and came back to California. I
Mhm.
spent 2 years learning how to be a Catholic, walking away from my past life. And all my people that knew me, they thought I lost it in the jungle. They thought I needed help, you know. But I was every day in the church, at mass and praying rosary with old ladies and going to all kinds of activities in the church in silence. I never told anyone anything, not even my sons, about my mystical experience for
Mhm.
2 years. I didn't even know how to explain it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it wasn't in my memory. But 2 years later, I came to Colombia during a Holy Week, and I had another experience with Jesus from a crucifix at a noon mass on Palm Sunday. And the Lord this time didn't speak with me to me with a voice. It was like the angel with signs. Like I understood everything he said, but they weren't words. And he showed me that I was called by him, that I had a calling, that I had a mission. And I was 49 years old already, and I was very tired and broken. I was very fragile as a human being because of all the experience of the kidnapping left me very wounded and weak, and so many things were wrong. But he said not to worry. He was going to take me all around the world, and he was going to take care of me. And all I had to do was do his job, and he will take care of me.
Mhm.
And uh, and I didn't understand a thing that day. So I went back to the place where I went to confession the first time, and I found this same Franciscan priest. And while I was confessing and consulting with him, I could see for a second that rock that I saw during my experience. And I realized that priest was my spiritual guide. And
Mhm.
he has been my spiritual father for almost 22 years already.
Mhm.
And so I walked away from my artistic career and founded a mission called Pilgrims of Love, and I have been traveling the world since then. 122 countries I have visited,
Amazing.
and I have
Amazing
never,
story.
yeah, I have never promoted myself. I have never offered my testimony to anybody. I had never done anything because I told the Lord I will never do that. If to make sure you are leading me, you will be the one that do make all the moves. And this is how I done it. I go everywhere because people invite me. Like you contacted me, right? And
Mhm.
this is the way I go, because when people contact me, I know the Lord is contacting me.
So life, you can say, dramatically obviously changed since that time, and you've been traveling all over the world, as you say, sharing this unbelievable testimony. For those who may be watching who find, the whole concept of hell difficult to believe in, or even heaven, or have struggles believing in God, what would you say to them? What would you say to those people who feel that, he doesn't exist, it's a figment of your imagination? Maybe this was even for you, maybe you were just caught up in a dream. What would you say to those people?
Well, I respect the way they feel. They have all the right to feel that way. And I'm nobody to tell them they are wrong. But I know better because I have seen what I have seen, and I know it was an hallucination or a dream. What I have seen and what I have experienced absolutely changed my life. In my life, nobody was able to change it because I was enjoying it. I had everything I wanted, though the guerrillas took a lot of my money and most everything I had. Still, I had ways to make it back, and I had my life. I had a good life. If you look at it worldly, uh, wise, the world was offering me a lot, and I walked away from all of that. Not as an insane person, but as someone that found a better way and a better life. And what I do, and the reason I share this is because I want to extend an invitation to people to look higher and to shift. And it's an invitation that you will never regret it. Uh, Life goes on after death, and we are not born yet. We are going to be born. But I recommend you to be born in the light, because there are only two ways to be born after death. You are born into the dark or the light. I recommend you the light.
So what do you think is the message, the main message of the Lord and his Blessed Mother? What are they wanting to tell us, particularly in the times that we're living in? People can't attend mass, coronavirus is keeping people isolated. So what do you think is the main message for the Lord and his Blessed Mother for us right now?
When life pushes us against the wall like it has today, with the pandemic and all the difficulties of the world today for Catholics and for all humanity, we are called to build the church of our hearts, because the church of bricks is closed down and it's not accessible. So the Lord is calling us to go inside in the heart and make sure we are building our inner church, because this is all that's going to be left when we die. Whatever we build, and it better be built with good materials, so it will be able to stand the fire of the love of God. And I think the main message is to make sure you are holy in everything you do. That's what Jesus, if you want to know what Jesus and Mary would like to tell you today, be holy. And this is the biggest gift they can give you, because holiness can only be achieved through them. And if you ask them, they will help you.
So holiness by means of going to mass, loving each other, getting confession, receiving the sacraments, and getting to know about the catechism, right? Are those the things that will help us obtain that holiness and pure of heart?
Yes, all of that. But the main thing is to decide to be holy, decide to be good, and to obey the commandments of God. You see, to make sure you walk away from a sinful life completely. Avoid sin as avoiding the plague.
Okay, well, that's been fantastic. So you leave us with lots to think about. And look, thank you so much for speaking to us today. You've been an absolute dream. And again, a real privilege to meet you in person. And I'm sure that many people will be touched, I should say, by your testimony. So thank you so much, Marino, and God bless.
You're welcome, and God bless you too. And God bless all your audience.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.